Hello and welcome to Literacy Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Cheryl Lundy Swift. In my last episode, I spoke with researcher Dr. Sean Datchick about why writing, especially sentence level writing, has to be taught explicitly. Today, I'm excited to continue that conversation from a district and leadership lens. Today, I'm joined with Denise Johnson, who serves in two capacities, curriculum director and building principal for Lawrence Public Schools in Lawrence, Kansas. Welcome to the show, Denise.
Cheryl, it's great to see you again. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of course. It's so great to see you. I had an opportunity to work with you and to build a wonderful webinar with you on how districts can really support teachers with better handwriting and how handwriting is so important to reading and writing in general.
So it was wonderful getting to have that opportunity. And this was our first year with Learning Without Tears, or our first year back. We had the curriculum prior, before COVID, and then brought that back. And it's been wonderful from a building perspective and working with students one-on-one to just kind of see the growth in handwriting in general.
That's awesome. It was a pleasure and you were a really, really big hit. So I'm super excited that even more people get to experience your expertise. So why don't we start by just having you tell us 3 things that we should know about you and your work?
Okay, I'll just probably start. This is my 35th year, I can't believe it, in education. And I have served in several roles, probably, as we would all state, most important classroom teacher, and have been 1st through 6th grade teacher. Unfortunately, not with the kinders, but I'm with them all the time now. So I have been a classroom teacher in several districts, building principal, and then I went into curriculum work and became the curriculum director for Lawrence Public Schools, with a focus on elementary and literacy. And then this last year, we had a situation where the building principal resigned, and this building needed some assistance. So, and working with this building, and honestly, it was probably the biggest gift ever. As a curriculum director, working with literacy and helping to reinforce. Until you can see the work in the weeds with the students, with the teachers, you really don't know if you're going to be successful or not. So it was wonderful. So I would always put up at the very top that I'm a parent, and I think that's has always been important to me, that I can reflect on that and what is happening at home. And I'm working on my doctorate in literacy. So I'm about a year away from finishing, and I'm a LETRS facilitator for the state of Kansas.
Wow. So future Dr. Johnson, super excited.
I hope so, right? There's still a journey for sure.
It is, but you know what? It's one worth taking, and I'm encouraging you. Don't stop, don't give up, for sure.
Well,
It's
I
great
love
work.
learning, right? Each class I take, I think, oh, I'm learning so much more, and it's
Sure.
wonderful to not only can I share what I'm learning in regards to literacy with district because of the curriculum focus, but also just at the building level with my staff.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So awesome. I'm super excited about this conversation, and I actually had a conversation with Dr. Sean Datchick, and we talked about writing, especially sentence level writing, as something that must be taught and not caught. I love seeing that and hearing that, taught, not caught. It's so cool. Sean has said it to me before. Several educators have now kind of picked up that lingo. But from a district leader and building leader perspective, where do you most often see writing instruction kind of falling through the cracks?
Well, I'm going to take off of what you just said about, and I'm going to say explicitly taught. And I think we're learning so much more. I'm of the era of the whole language, the reading first, everything. It was wonderful years ago when I first started teaching that all I needed to do was have books in my room and some pillows on the floor and a lamp, and kids would magically learn how to read. Um, I'm so glad that we've moved past that, and the science of reading has really taught us how to explicitly teach and what to look for. So I think when you say fall through the cracks where we are, I'm going to talk from a couple of lenses. I think initially from a building lens is scheduling in time, making sure that you have an intentional 120 to 150 minute block for ELA, and within that ELA block, it's really critical that writing has its own specific time. You can't just say, oh, it's our reading block and get everything in. And I have learned that on several levels. One, from a curriculum perspective a few years ago, oh, we just need to push and have that amount of time in there. No, we need to be explicit with the 120 minutes on what's taught within that time frame between interventions, with writing, handwriting, reading, read to response. I mean, there's several components that I think are important within that. So that time frame I think is big. Probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing, and I can probably say that from a teacher lens all the way up to where I am now, the standards are there. Kansas has really great standards for ELA and writing.
Yeah.
But we're not doing it, and I think part of it is we just don't know how. I think it's easier to read through something and say, okay, yeah, let's write a sentence. Here you go. Here's your sentence stem, and finish it. But until we get to the part of modeling and really going from part to whole or whole to part, we're not getting it. So again, explicitly taught.
Yeah. I think it's so important. And and we oftentimes make assumptions, right? That people know how to teach sentence writing simply because they know how to write a sentence. And that's not always the case. I think we may need to go back and look and see what we're offering people in colleges, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good place to kind of start. And I think we're getting there when we think about Kansas's required the seal of literacy, and all of that requires coursework to be able to get there. But I'm even finding out as a letters facilitator and or a person, I can absolutely take the coursework, but the bridge to practice or that component of being able to connect everything and work with the students and apply my learning, that's the key piece. And that has to come almost at the building level. In my role as a principal, I can say, okay, we just completed all the components on vocabulary. Now I need to see it in your classroom.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's that whole theory to practice. Sometimes there's a really big gap between the two. I
Absolutely.
love that you call that out. Now, Dr. Datchik describes sentence level writing as the bridge. You mentioned the word bridge between words and extended composition. How does that idea align with what you've observed in classrooms across your building, and since you're the curriculum person as well, maybe even across your district?
Yeah, I think that bridge, and I mentioned a little bit, I think, between understanding whole to parts and parts to whole. I think it's really important that every single thing has to be explicitly taught. So I can absolutely have the words down on a paper. And matter of fact, sat with some students last week, and we created a word bank, but I started with them, like, tell me words that you would use to describe, and we created the word bank, and then I talked about, now what would be some sentences that we could use, and we created some sentence stems. Now, I could have just stopped right there, right, and said, okay, here you go work on it. Well, they didn't know how to put it together in a 2-paragraph piece that I was working with them on. So then what makes sense to go first? Let's write that first sentence. What kind of words do you want to use for that? Well, you can use your words, but until every single step had been modeled along the way. So I would model it down for them, and then they would practice, and then we'd go back and forth between the two. So in that particular example, we modeled the whole. Where do we want to go? We wanted to write a letter, and that letter was an impact letter to a certain individuals. And within that impact letter, where do we put all the components? So again, it is whole picture individual parts, and then modeling along the way.
Yeah, it's so important for us to model like how to write the sentence, but also orally what's happening in our heads, right?
Mhm.
As we're thinking through those parts. So important for students to really see us do that work, because it's important for students to see that it's not magic, right? That it
Exactly.
can be hard
Well,
work, right?
and I think as a classroom teacher too, reflecting on that, and then this was principal work last week, right?
Right,
Sometimes it was like, okay, you probably shouldn't have made that choice, right? So we were writing an impact letter,
right.
but when I would do it with my class, they need to see me make mistakes too. Right? I
Yeah.
would write it on the board and we would do it together or overhead or however you want to do it, right, within a presentation. And I would step back and I would say, I'm not sure that that sounds right. Maybe I'll go back to it later. So I think it's that think alouds of modeling that with the students as well, that you have to just reflect on it. They need to see adults struggle with it too. And they need to see that I'm going to persevere, right? I'm going to keep working on it, and then I might even lean over to someone and say, "Okay, what do you think of that sentence? Right? Do you think I need to add?" I think it's a lot of that because it doesn't, as you state, it doesn't just magically happen.
Yeah, I love that. That really kind of building the muscle, right? The perseverance muscle, really teaching.
I'm using that perseverance muscle. I'm using that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, when I think about reading and writing, I mean, it always takes me back to my favorite quote by Frederick Douglass. Once you learn to read, you will forever be free. I always now, I've kind of modified that to add reading and writing, right? And so when I think about that, I think about all the children who are struggling, and I think about reading and writing being the work, really equity work, right? And so, what do you think are the equity implications when students have strong ideas but are really unable to express them clearly in writing?
Oh goodness. I think from all levels. One of the things that I'm really excited about is one, being at an elementary, you're catching the students when they're young. It was just shared with me about a month ago that I am going to be the next preschool site. So I will have the littlest of little bobcats in my building. So 4-year-olds will be starting here at Prairie Park. And all the work that I've done in early literacy, it's so exciting to know um, that we'll have younger students here because words are magic. The oral language, the conversations, getting kids to talk and just feel comfortable, I think is critical. I think in all aspects of wherever that you're teaching, that sometimes, especially in a world of a lot of technology, I'm seeing a lot of handing the phone over and so forth to even young children instead of having those conversations in the grocery cart, right? And just having the kids sit in the cart and being able, and I try to share that with my families and teachers to be able to model that. It's driving down the street and recognizing the different signs and the letters that you see. It is the being in the grocery store and saying, well, what is this? And here's the lettuce, here's the apple. What letter does that start with? Do you see that? I think it's utilizing every opportunity that you can for that oral language.
Yeah.
And there's a place and a time for technology, absolutely. But I do think when a child is young, it's so important to be a face to face, lots of talking. And that's what I'm excited about for next year to continue building, as I said, my littlest bobcats, or Prairie Park bobcats, that we would bring them here and that we would help not only the students, but help the families broaden their information about literacy and oral language, and then moving that reading and writing, of course.
I love, well, first of all, congratulations again on having
Thank
those
you.
littlest bobcats in your building. How awesome. And I love that you brought up oral language. In fact, I'd love to know how you think oral language supports writing development, especially for those younger students, or even maybe for students who are just still developing those handwriting and spelling skills.
Oral language is when you think about it, it has to come first, right? I mean, I think we process in our head. We always try to work with students about some think alouds, think in your head, giving every student, some time to be able to process before you ask them to share. But if um, sharing with a friend, talking it out loud, what is it that you want to, what do you want your story to be about? What should your sentence say? And I think if you share it out loud and then try to write it down and then share it out loud again, I think every opportunity should be a component of processing that oral language to move from either the reading and or the writing component.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, if I could not talk, I don't think I could. I would really know what I was thinking. I need to be able to say it out loud, to actually say, I believe that, or I don't believe that.
Well, I think it breeds a lot of things too. I think we do a lot of cooperative learning, right? Where it's turn to your partner
Yeah.
and tell your partner what you're thinking, and then your partner shares back. It also helps with that reassurance of, ooh, I didn't get it either, or, oh, that's exactly what I thought. And then the excitement builds, right? And I think you have to have that motivation and that engagement moving forward.
Sure, love that. So, Denise, from your experience, what does actually effective sentence level instruction look like? I'm talking about like in real classrooms, the classrooms that you're going into and obviously supporting. So this is kind of that whole idea of moving from theory to day-to-day practice. So what does effective sentence level instruction look like?
Well, I stated earlier that I think it's a lot of modeling, right? And I think students need to understand what is expected of them, and depending upon the level, that could be just doing some practicing, understanding what the whole picture. As I stated earlier about the letter that I wrote, they understood that they were going to write a 2-paragraph letter with a greeting and a closing. It needed to look a certain way, and we worked on word bank and sentence stems to be able to get there. It's the modeling component that goes along with it. Lots of examples, and I think what's helpful is you do it with them. Or you've created a rubric depending upon the level that they're at, so they understand what's expected of them, right? Everybody wants to know. I mean, from littles to adults, we all want to just say, well, what do you want it to look like, right? What should this be? And yes, there's a huge component of creativity and make it your own, and that whole component of the 6 traits that were like voice, right, that you have in your writing
Sure.
component. But
Yeah.
ultimately, they want to know, okay, so give me the organization and the structure of what needs to be a part of it. And that can happen within a rubric. Model that with them. And then that's when the magic happens with the word choice and the voice, and that goes into the writing process.
Oh yeah. It's true. Like it is so very true that like when we think about modeling, right? It's so we have to show them. And we would want to be shown as well. Like, think about all of the classes that you're probably taking now from professor to professor. There are certain things that that professor may want that the other one does
Absolutely.
not. And it's important for us to get the grade that we want to give them what they are looking for, right? So we
Well, and
want them to
honestly, you
listen.
just said that. So I just finished a course, and one of my favorite parts of my reflection is we would read an article and we would have to process through and write a reflection, and then colleagues on the online course would then reflect back, and I got to read their paper and then and questions back and forth, and that was so reassuring. I always would want to read a few examples before I did mine. So
Yes.
here I am, an adult learner with several years of experience, and I need it.
Yeah.
So you know that our students need it. And so the modeling component, sharing examples, taking a little small bites of it at a time are really important.
So, so important. Now, I know, Denise, that you're considering piloting Learning Without Tears, this new program called Building Writers Cornerstones. So tell us, what problem of practice are you hoping that this pilot will help you address?
Oh, several. So I think I want to start with all of my training within letters. The last component is writing. I do think it's just a missing link. And as I started doing lots of the work over the last 2 years within writing as the curriculum director, everyone kept saying the same thing is teachers don't know how to instruct, they don't have the right materials, they're not sure what they need to do next, what do they model, what don't they model. And then coming to the building level, after working with Learning Without Tears, wanting to just take that next step of providing guidance and some resources on how to teach writing, just a component at a time. So I've reached out. I'm not positive I can do the pilot yet, but I have reached out to the superintendent to kind of think about, I really would like Prairie Park to be this literacy lab school and an opportunity where I have a lot of teachers that are really hyper-focused, as everyone should be hyper-focused on teaching reading and writing, but to really work on that and then to provide that guidance within this program that the teachers are asking for.
Well, my fingers are crossed for you. I'm hoping that Prairie Park gets to definitely pilot building writers, and we want to get your feedback and know how we were able to support you and your effort to become that literacy lab
Thank you.
for sure.
I hope so.
So as we close, Denise, could you share some advice that you'd like to offer to empower educators who may be feeling a little more confident in their reading work, but are still trying to figure out how to strengthen their writing instruction? What would you say to them?
I probably would say go do it, right? I think the thing that I've learned the most, right, from classroom teacher to principal to director back to principal, is I could read all the research, I could talk with all of the different folks, I could bring in leadership teams, but until I was back in the building working with students and staff again, I didn't really understand the need. And where just kind of, I guess people use the expression in the weeds kind of a little bit. I really needed to just do it. I needed to be a part of the process. I needed to sit with teachers. I needed to do observations. I needed to work with students. I needed to talk with families. So when you say advice, I'd say get out there. And I think that's where a lot of our professional development is successful, is when it's get out there and do it. It's not just read it. It's not just learn about it. It can't be a sit and get. It is ingest the information and knowledge and then go and try it. And then learn from that and try it again. And as leaders for buildings, be in those classrooms, supporting your educators, supporting your students, encouraging them to be risk takers and try something a little different.
Wow, that's powerful. Like to just do it, right? Yeah, I love it to just do it and not to be so far away from the student experience so that you can really know how to support your teachers better. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's probably the best advice I can do. Go in, and every single elementary school, I'm sure, will open the doors and say, yes, another adult, of course, come in and help us.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Denise, it was a pleasure.
I love that I've had this opportunity with you, Cheryl, and I'm just thrilled that I can highlight some of the literacy training that I've done and that I can help to maybe share a little bit of that out with your audience and then especially my colleagues here in Lawrence.
Well, Denise, I'm so excited to really spotlight all the wonderful things that you are doing there in Lawrence and all the great work that your team is doing. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. It has been a pleasure to get to know you and to really highlight and spotlight all that you're doing in Lawrence.